At the western edge of the village of Bluntisham, 2 water towers have been a prominent feature of the skyline for many years. Visible from every direction, they almost appear to move, and the distance between them seems different from every viewpoint. They stand sentinel over orchards and fields, beside the busiest road in and out of town. The following report delivers a brief history of the water towers and details the months leading up to the village being cordoned off. This report is being transmitted on a public frequency in an attempt to share undisclosed information surrounding these events. No documentation on the construction of the first tower exists. A newspaper article from 1932 describes the tower as appearing seemingly overnight, but was otherwise disinterested in pondering how or why. Any residents who were alive at the supposed time of building have since passed away, or were too young to remember any details. The circular plan concrete tower stood solitary for almost 40 years. It was accompanied by a second tower, with a construction as enigmatic as the first. It differs from its predecessor in appearance, with a series of cantilever beams and columns to support the water tank. The lack of official procedure and sudden appearance surrounding the tower initially led to anxieties typical of Cold War era Britain. Any complaints submitted to governmental bodies were either disregarded or lost in the sea of bureaucratic paperwork. These anxieties eventually faded. The tower stood dormant for decades, providing the village with potable drinking water. Reports made some years later described the declining state of the local ecology. In particular, the population of waterfowl dropped dramatically, and aquatic vegetation all but vanished. The preliminary investigation launched by the Environmental Agency noted that nobody's name was on the land registry for the orchard, and nobody in the village had ever seen the doors opened. A research team was dispatched to assess any possible interior damage to the water towers. Upon approach, shrill electronic signals fired back and forth across the orchard. The crew were hospitalized and became increasingly unwell. Symptoms reported were similar to that of a migraine: fatigue, sensitivity to light, and difficulty speaking. 5 of the 6 affected recovered. During this delay of investigation, the signals continued to occur, varying in duration and intensity. Sometimes music distinct presence of 2 minutes, other times piercing wails for many hours. Eventually, those living in close proximity to the towers were forced to uproot. Signals became inconstant. The villagers who remained soon fell deathly ill as a result of a sudden change in the water that they'd been drinking and bathing in for decades. An intense sensation of dehydration overcame those affected. Medical examinations revealed artery shrinkage in all patients. Crude tests made with insufficient facilities failed to reveal any visible contamination in the water. The form of radiation can be assumed to have been present. This is the most likely explanation for the once-thriving fields surrounding the towers, with sticks and dust overnight. Members of the family experienced a brief ecological boom before the entire population decomposed 48 hours later. The lack of official intervention, superseded by a forced evacuation by governmental bodies, a number of us have decided to attempt what the investigation team failed to accomplish. By cutting through the wire fences cordoning off the village, donned in thick hats, scarves,